Dae-ho Kim walked through the empty halls of Station Omega-7 for the last time. His footsteps echoed against the metal walls that humans had built 20 years ago. The Corithian supervisors were still sleeping in their luxury quarters, dreaming of another day of giving orders to their human workers. He checked his watch. 3 hours until the final transport ships would leave. 3 hours until humanity would disappear from the galaxy forever. Dae-ho had spent 15 years as Chief Human Labor Coordinator. Every day, he received reports from human work crews across the galaxy. Mining operations on dead worlds, maintenance teams on space stations, engineering groups building new colonies. For 300 years, humans had done the hard work while alien species took the credit. But today was different. Today was the end. Sujin Park was already at the communications center when Dae-ho arrived. She looked tired but excited. Her fingers moved quickly across the control panels, sending final messages to human settlements throughout the galaxy. Status report, Dae-ho said quietly. 97% of human populations have reached the departure points, Sujin replied. The remaining 3% will be picked up within the next 2 hours. Dae-ho nodded. They had planned this for 40 years. Every human child born in the last generation had learned the plan along with their first words. Every adult had practiced their role until it became second nature. The aliens thought humans were simple. They thought humans were grateful for the chance to serve the advanced civilizations of the galaxy. They had no idea that behind every polite smile and every yes, sir, was a growing anger that had been building for centuries. Tae-min Lee was in the engineering section making his final preparations. He looked at the screens showing power levels, life support systems, and gravity controls for the entire station. All green lights, all working perfectly. The Corithians who lived on this station had no idea how any of it worked. They knew how to press buttons and give orders, but they had never bothered to learn the science behind their comfortable lives. When something broke, they called for humans to fix it. When they wanted something new, they told humans to build it. Tomorrow, when they woke up, they would find empty workshops and quiet maintenance bays. They would press their buttons and wonder why nothing happened. Tae-min smiled as he activated the final protocol. The station would keep working for now, but without human engineers to maintain it, problems would start appearing in a few weeks. Small problems at first, a broken air filter here, a power fluctuation there. Nothing the Corithians couldn't ignore for a while. But the problems would grow. Systems would fail one by one, and there would be no humans left to fix them. Jiwoo. Choi finished packing the last medical supplies from the station's hospital. She had seen too many humans die from working in dangerous conditions while their alien supervisors stayed safe in climate-controlled offices. She had treated radiation, poisoning from miners who were not given proper protective equipment. She had watched good people die because aliens considered human lives less valuable than their profit margins. The medical records she carried contained the truth about human service to the galaxy, accident reports that were never filed. Death. Certificates that listed equipment failure instead of criminal negligence. Injury statistics that would shock any civilized society. But the galaxy was not civilized. It was built on the blood and sweat of humans who had no choice but to serve or die. Jiwoo sealed the last container of medical data. Someday, when humans had built their own civilization, these records would remind them why they had left. They would remember the cost of trusting people who saw them as tools instead of equals. The transport ships arrived exactly on schedule. Captain Yoon-ho directed the loading operations with calm efficiency. His crew had practiced this evacuation hundreds of times in secret simulations. Every person knew where to go. Every container of supplies had its place. The aliens would wake up tomorrow to find empty rooms and silent machines. They would find no angry messages or demands for better treatment. They would find no explanation at all. Humans had simply stopped existing in their world. Dae-ho took one last look around, the communication center. For 3 centuries, this room had been the heart of human labor coordination. Orders came down from alien councils. Reports went up from human work crews. The flow of information that kept the galaxy running had passed through rooms like this. 1. Now the screens were dark. The communication arrays were disabled. The vast network that connected human workers across thousands of worlds had been quietly dismantled over the past month. Sujin had done her job perfectly. Every human settlement had received their final instructions through channels the aliens never knew existed. Encrypted messages hidden in routine work reports, code words buried in maintenance schedules. A secret language developed over decades of careful planning. The aliens had been so confident in their control that they never bothered to monitor human communications. They assumed humans were too simple to organize anything complex. They assumed humans were too grateful to ever think of rebellion. They were wrong about many things. Taemin joined them as they walked toward the docking bay. Behind them, the station hummed with the quiet efficiency that humans had built into every system. Environmental controls maintained perfect temperature and air quality. Artificial gravity kept everyone comfortable. Power flowed smoothly through circuits designed by human engineers. It was beautiful work. It would have lasted for centuries with proper maintenance, but the people who understood it were leaving, and the people who remained had never bothered to learn. The last humans boarded their transport ship as the station's artificial morning began. Lights gradually brightened in the corridors. Climate systems adjusted for the daily cycle. Breakfast preparation began in automated kitchens. Everything was normal. Everything was perfect. Everything would continue to work until it didn't. Dae-ho strapped himself into his seat as the ship prepared to depart. Through the window, he could see other transports leaving different docking bays. Across the galaxy, the same scene was happening on thousands of worlds. Humans saying goodbye to the only life they had known, but they were not running away in fear. They were walking away in dignity. The transport ship pulled away from Station Omega-7 and headed for open space. Behind them, the station continued its daily routine. Computer systems managed everything automatically. Robotic cleaners maintained the corridors. Automated factories produced goods that humans had programmed them to make. The Corithians would wake up in a few hours to find their morning coffee ready and their reports prepared. It might take them days to realize that no humans were left to blame when things went wrong. Sujin checked her communication equipment one more time. Radio silence from now on. No contact with the galaxy they were leaving behind. The humans had made their choice, and there would be no changing their minds. They were heading toward empty space beyond the galaxy's edge, toward worlds that no alien had ever claimed, toward a future that they would build with their own hands, for their own people, on their own terms. The galaxy would learn to regret treating them like slaves, but humans would never again kneel to anyone. 6 months had passed since the humans disappeared. Supervisor Velthar stood in the control room of Station Omega-7, staring at warning lights that had been blinking for 3 days. The air recycling system was showing red alerts, but he had no idea what any of the symbols meant. "Call the human technicians," he ordered his assistant. "Sir, there are no human technicians left. They all left 6 months ago, remember?" Velthar felt a cold fear in his stomach. He had been pressing buttons and giving orders for so long that he had forgotten humans were the ones who actually made things work. The buttons were just pretty lights without someone who understood the machines behind them. On the far side of the galaxy, Hei-Rin Moon was teaching her daughter how to read star charts. They lived on a small planet that humans had found beyond the edge of known space. The air was clean, the water was pure, and no one gave orders except through polite requests and democratic votes. Hei-Rin had spent 20 years maintaining atmospheric processors for alien colonies. She knew every system, every backup, every safety protocol. She also knew that without constant human attention, those systems would start failing in predictable ways. Her personal communicator buzzed with another emergency message from the Galactic Council. They were offering improved working conditions for any humans willing to return. The messages came daily now, each one more desperate than the last. She deleted the message without reading it completely. Humans had heard promises before. They had been told about better treatment and increased respect more times than anyone could count. The promises always lasted until the work was done. Dongwu Xin commanded a small fleet of human ships patrolling the outer reaches of their new territory. His sensors picked up another alien search vessel trying to track human escape routes. This was the 15th ship this month. The alien ship was moving slowly, clearly lost. Its navigation systems were failing because humans had designed the hyperspace beacon network that guided ships safely between stars. Without human navigators to maintain and update the beacons, space travel was becoming dangerous again. Dongwu watched as the alien ship tried to calculate a jump back to friendly space. The jump coordinates were wrong. He could see the error in their calculations, but he made no move to help. The ship would end up 3 light years off course, in empty space with barely enough fuel to reach the nearest station. Let them learn what space travel was like before humans made it safe. Youngsu Kang was working in the gardens of New Seoul, the largest human settlement. The crops grew tall and green under artificial suns that humans had designed. His hydroponic systems could feed millions of people using a fraction of the resources that traditional farming required. He had developed these systems for alien worlds over 30 years of patient work. Each planet had different atmospheric conditions, different soil chemistry, different water supplies. Youngsu had learned to adapt his designs for every situation, but he had never trained anyone else to do the work. The aliens had been content to eat the food he grew without caring how he grew it. Now their agricultural systems were failing across dozens of worlds, and they had no idea how to fix them. Youngsu checked the reports that Sujin's intelligence network still intercepted from galactic communication channels. Food riots on Centauri Prime, crop failures on the Xerion colonies, famine warnings on 17 different worlds. It would get worse before it got better. Much worse. The Galactic Council held emergency sessions every day now. Ambassador Zek Thrawn of the Thrakari Empire slammed his fist on the council table as he spoke. This is impossible. Humans are a primitive species. How can their absence cause such widespread problems? Perhaps, said Counselor Nithara quietly, we underestimated their importance to our civilization. Nonsense. They were laborers, maintenance, workers. Anyone can do manual labor. Nithara gestured to a datapad showing system failures across the galaxy. Then why are our best engineers unable to repair the damage? Why are our agricultural specialists unable to maintain food production? Why are our navigation experts afraid to plot hyperspace courses? The council chamber fell silent. The truth was becoming clear, even to those who refused to accept it. Humans had not been simple laborers. They had been the foundation that everything else was built upon. Yunjibei stood on the observation deck of her new home, watching the sunset over mountains that no alien had ever claimed. She had spent her career terraforming hostile worlds, turning dead rocks into places where people could live and breathe. Her work had been more than just engineering. Every terraforming project was like solving a huge puzzle. Atmosphere composition, weather patterns, geological stability, biological balance. A million variables that had to work together perfectly. The aliens had treated it like magic. They would point at a planet and say, "Make this livable," then walk away until the work was done. They never asked how she did it. They never tried to learn the process. They just expected results. Now those terraformed worlds were slowly dying. The atmospheric processors were breaking down. The weather control systems were failing. Toxic gases were seeping back into the air that humans had made breathable. Yunji felt no guilt about leaving her work behind. She had given the galaxy 30 years of her life, and in return, she had been treated like a tool that could be stored in a closet when not needed. Woojin Seo monitored the galactic communication networks from his hidden base. As the galaxy's top cybersecurity expert, he had protected alien computer systems from hackers, viruses, and rogue artificial intelligences. His security protocols had been invisible, but essential. Without his constant vigilance, the galaxy's networks were being attacked by every criminal organization and hostile AI in known space. Bank systems crashed daily. Government databases were being stolen or destroyed. Military communication networks were compromised so often that some species had returned to using paper messages. The Thrakari homeworld had suffered a complete economic collapse when hackers accessed their financial systems. Billions of credits had vanished overnight. Trade agreements were being deleted from government computers. Historical records were being replaced with random data. Wu Jin could have prevented all of it with a few hours of work. But he was busy now teaching human children how to build secure networks for their own civilization. Networks that would never depend on the goodwill of ungrateful masters. Kyung-ho Nam watched news feeds from his workshop on New Busan Colony. The galaxy's manufacturing systems were failing in ways that should have been impossible. Quality control was breaking down. Production lines were shutting down for unknown reasons. Products that had been reliable for decades were suddenly defective. The aliens had never understood that manufacturing was more than just following instruction manuals. Every production line needed constant small adjustments. Every quality control system needed human intuition to catch problems before they became disasters. Kyung-ho had spent 40 years optimizing production processes, improving efficiency, solving problems that alien engineers couldn't even recognize. His work had been invisible to his supervisors, but essential to everything they built. Now alien factories were producing garbage, spaceships with faulty life support systems, computers that crashed randomly, medical equipment that gave wrong readings, food processors that contaminated everything they touched. The galaxy was learning what happened when you took the foundation away and expected the building to keep standing. But humans were no longer interested in preventing the collapse. They had not caused. Council emergency broadcasts were becoming more frequent and more desperate. Offers of citizenship, promises of equal rights, guarantees of fair treatment. Each message was more generous than the last, and each one was ignored by the humans who heard it. The galaxy had made its choice 300 years ago when it decided to build its civilization on human labor without human consent. Now humans had made their choice too. They would build something better. 1 year after the humans left, the Zentorian trade ship Golden Star vanished into hyperspace and never came out. Captain Mordak had been following the same trade route for 15 years, but this time something went wrong. The navigation beacon that should have guided him safely to the Kepler system was broadcasting the wrong coordinates. On the bridge of the rescue ship sent to find him, Commander Yilthar stared at the empty space where Golden Star should have emerged. The ship's computer showed that the beacon was working perfectly, but the human who had programmed it was no longer there to update the stellar drift calculations. The Zentorian hegemony had lost 12 ships in the past month. Each one had trusted navigation systems that humans had built and maintained. Without human navigators to correct for the tiny changes in stellar positions and gravitational fields, the hyperspace network was becoming a maze of death traps. Bora. Lim was teaching her 10-year-old son how to plot safe hyperspace jumps when the news of another lost ship reached New Sol Colony. She had been the lead navigator for the Zentorian trade fleet before the Exodus. She knew every beacon, every safe route, every dangerous shortcut in their territory. Her son was learning mathematics that no alien child would ever study. Gravitational, mechanics, quantum field theory, hyperspace physics. The knowledge that had made humans indispensable to galactic civilization was being passed to a new generation that would never serve alien masters. "Why don't we help them, Mom?" her son asked, pointing at the news report showing families crying for their lost relatives. Bo-Ra was quiet for a moment. "Because they never asked us to help them before. They only ordered us to serve them." There is a difference. The Corithian Empire's main computer network crashed on a Tuesday morning. It started as a small virus in their banking system, but within hours it had spread to every connected computer in their territory. Government records vanished. Military communications went silent. Even the life support systems on their space stations began showing error messages. Wu Jin Seo had built the security protocols that would have stopped the virus in minutes. His software had protected Corithian systems for 20 years, learning and adapting to new threats faster than any alien programmer could understand. But Wu Jin was now working on defenses for human colonies, teaching security techniques to people who understood that knowledge was meant to be shared, not hoarded by a ruling class that took credit for work they had never done. The virus that destroyed Corithian networks was not sophisticated. Any first-year programming student could have written it. But without human expertise to defend against it, the virus spread like fire through dry grass. Within a week, the Corithian Empire had no functioning computer systems. Their military could not coordinate attacks. Their government could not collect taxes. Their people could not access their bank accounts or buy food. Counselor Velthar found himself using paper and ink for the first time in his adult life, writing desperate messages to other species asking for help with temporary technical difficulties. Yunji Bei received another priority message from the Galactic Council while she was designing a new atmospheric processor for the human colony on Kepler 438b. The message offered her unlimited resources and complete creative control if she would return to fix the terraforming failures on 17 different worlds. She deleted the message and continued her work. The atmospheric processor she was building would maintain perfect air quality for 1 million humans without any external support. It was elegant, efficient, and designed by someone who cared about the people who would breathe the air it produced. The terraforming projects she had left behind were failing exactly as she had predicted. Complex atmospheric chemistry could not be maintained by pressing buttons and reading instruction manuals. Each planet had unique conditions that required constant small adjustments based on understanding, not just following rules. Colony ships full of alien refugees had begun arriving at spaceports throughout the galaxy. They carried families fleeing from worlds where the air was becoming toxic again. Children coughed from breathing atmosphere that was slowly reverting to its natural, deadly composition. The aliens had always assumed that terraforming was permanent. Point at a planet, wait for humans to make it livable, then move in and forget about the process. They had never realized that keeping a world habitable required the same expertise as making it habitable in the first place. So young Kim walked through the forests of New Jeju, breathing air that smelled of growing things and clean rain. She had spent her career as a biological systems designer, creating ecosystems that could thrive on alien worlds. Her work had fed billions and provided the oxygen that many species breathed. The colony around her was proof that humans could build something better than what they had left behind. The forests produced food and medicine. The rivers ran clean and full. The soil was rich with life that would sustain human communities for generations. Behind her, the galaxy she had abandoned was facing ecological collapse. The biological systems she had designed were breaking down without her guidance. Forests were dying. Rivers were becoming polluted. Soil was losing its fertility as the careful balance of microorganisms fell apart. It took decades to establish a healthy ecosystem, but only months for it to collapse when the person who understood it was no longer there to maintain it. Hyun-Woo Park was reviewing defense plans when the first Galactic Council fleet appeared at the edge of human space. The fleet contained over 300 ships from a dozen different species, all searching for the humans who had vanished from their civilization. Hyunwoo had been a logistics coordinator before the Exodus, managing supply chains and transportation, networks that kept alien military forces operational. He understood their tactics, their technology, and their weaknesses better than they did. The search fleet was impressive in size, but it was also completely lost. Without human navigators, they could not plot safe courses through unexplored space. Without human engineers, their ships were developing mechanical problems that their crews could not fix. Without human supply coordinators, they were running short of food and fuel. Hyunwoo watched through long-range sensors as the fleet stumbled through space like a blind giant. They would find nothing because they were looking in the wrong places, using search patterns that humans had designed for them but never explained. More importantly, the fleet was slowly breaking down. Life support systems failed on 2 ships in the first week. A navigation error sent one destroyer into an asteroid field where it was destroyed. Food poisoning from improperly maintained supplies put 30% of the crews in medical bays. The search for humans was being hampered by the absence of humans. Minister Kolthan of the Zarion Republic stood before the Galactic Council reading from a datapad with shaking hands. His homeworld was facing complete infrastructure collapse. Power grids were failing. Transportation systems had stopped working. The water purification plants that supplied his people were producing liquid that was barely safe to drink. "We need the humans back," he said to the assembled delegates. "Not for improved productivity, not for economic advantage, for survival." The council chamber was quiet. Every species represented had similar problems. Some were worse than others, but all were facing the same terrible truth. Their civilization had been built on human knowledge and human labor, and without humans, it was falling apart. "What are our options?" asked Ambassador Thekmore. "We offer them anything they want," replied Councillor Nithara. "Full citizenship, equal representation, shared governance, whatever it takes." And if they refuse, the silence stretched long enough that everyone understood the answer. If the humans refused to return, galactic civilization would collapse completely. Billions would die. Entire species might not survive. Young-Soo Kang was harvesting vegetables from his garden when he received a personal message from the Galactic Council. It was addressed to him by name and title, acknowledging his expertise in agricultural systems. The message offered him a position as Director of Galactic Food Security, with authority over agricultural policy for the entire galaxy. He showed the message to his wife, who laughed until tears ran down her face. "They want to put you in charge of the same systems you maintained for free for 30 years, she said. "Now they think a fancy title will make you forget how they treated you." Young-Soo deleted the message and returned to his garden. The vegetables he grew would feed human children who would never know hunger or fear. The seeds he saved would plant forests on worlds where humans would live as free people. The galaxy could offer him titles and power, but they could not offer him the one thing that mattered, the knowledge that his work was valued by people who respected him as an equal. That was something humans had found for themselves in the dark space beyond the edge of known civilization, and it was something they would never give up again. 3 years after the humans disappeared, Admiral Zexkoth commanded the largest search operation in galactic history. 5,000 ships from every member species of the Galactic Council were spread across unexplored space, following any trace that might lead to human settlements. The Admiral stared at star charts that showed vast, empty regions beyond the galaxy's edge. Somewhere in that darkness, billions of humans were building a new civilization. The Council needed to find them before their own worlds collapsed completely. But the search was not going well. In 3 years of searching, they had found only empty space stations and abandoned mining platforms. The humans had been thorough when they left, taking everything useful and leaving only basic structures behind. Ga-Yun Ryu piloted her scout ship through an asteroid field that had once been a human mining operation. Her sensors detected the search. Fleets approached 3 hours before they would arrive. She had plenty of time to finish her mission and escape without being seen. She was collecting rare metals that human colonies needed for their expanding technology. The asteroids contained elements that were difficult to find in the regions where humans had settled. These supply runs kept human civilization growing while staying hidden from galactic forces. Her ship was designed with modifications that no alien engineer understood. Human scientists had improved hyperspace drives, sensor arrays, and communication systems far beyond anything the galaxy had achieved. The search fleets were looking for humans using technology that humans had already surpassed. Ga-Yun watched the approaching alien ships struggle with navigation problems that would have been simple for human crews to solve. 2 ships had already collided while trying to maintain formation. A third was broadcasting distress signals because its life support system was failing. She could have helped them. Her engineering knowledge could have solved their problems in minutes, but she remembered the years of being treated like a tool that could be discarded when not needed. She remembered the casual cruelty of supervisors who saw humans as less than people. The alien ships could solve their own problems or die trying. Jae-hyun monitored galactic communications from a hidden listening post on the edge of human space. His job was to track the search operations and warn human colonies of any approaching threats. He had been the Council's chief translator before the Exodus, fluent in 47 different alien languages. The intercepted messages painted a picture of growing desperation throughout the galaxy. Food shortages were becoming famines. System failures were cascading into complete infrastructure collapse. Some species were discussing the possibility of their own extinction if humans could not be found. But the messages also revealed the true nature of the search operation. This was not a rescue mission or an attempt to make peace. The alien species wanted their workers back. They spoke of humans as resources to be recovered, not people to be respected. Jae-hyun translated intercepted military communications that spoke of capturing human settlements and securing human populations. The galactic forces were planning to take humans by force if they could not convince them to return voluntarily. This information was immediately shared with human military commanders. The galaxy was planning war, not reconciliation. So-Young Kim was teaching xenobiology to a class of human children when the first reports of alien biological warfare reached New Sol Colony. Several human outposts had detected genetically modified organisms in their ecosystems, plants and animals that had been altered to track human DNA. The aliens were trying to use biological weapons to locate human settlements. They had released modified life forms into unexplored space, hoping these organisms would seek out human colonies and report their locations. So-Young had designed many of these tracking organisms during her years of service. She knew their capabilities and, more importantly, their weaknesses. Within hours of receiving the reports, she had developed countermeasures that would not only neutralize the tracking organisms, but turn them against their creators. The modified organisms were reprogrammed with new genetic code. Instead of seeking human settlements, they would seek the ships that had released them. Instead of reporting locations to galactic forces, they would destroy the communication equipment they found. The hunters had become the hunted. Hyunwoo Park stood in the command center of New Busan Colony, watching tactical displays that showed galactic search fleets throughout human space. The aliens had divided their forces into smaller groups, hoping to cover more territory and avoid the mechanical failures that plagued large fleets. It was a good strategy, but it had a fatal weakness. The smaller fleets were even more dependent on human-designed systems that they could not maintain. Isolated groups of ships were breaking down faster than larger fleets, and they had no backup when critical systems failed. Hyunwoo had spent his career managing logistics for alien military operations. He understood their doctrine, their supply requirements, and their tactical limitations. Now he used that knowledge to stay one step ahead of their search operations. Human settlements. Moved regularly, using portable technology that allowed entire colonies to relocate within days. When search fleets approached a human world, they found empty planets with no trace of recent habitation. The humans had learned to live like nomads, never staying in one place long enough to be found. But they were not running in fear. They were, leading their pursuers deeper into unexplored space, where navigation was more difficult and supply lines were impossible to maintain. Admiral Colvex commanded one of the search fleets that had been pursuing human signals for 6 months. His ships were operating at the edge of their operational range, far from any supply bases or repair facilities. Food was running low, and several ships needed maintenance that his crews could not provide. The humans they were chasing seemed to always be one step ahead. Every time his fleet reached coordinates where human activity had been detected, they found nothing but empty space. It was as if the humans could predict his movements and disappear before he arrived. What Admiral Colvex did not know was that his own ship's communication systems had been compromised months ago by human cyber specialists. Every order he gave, every plan he made, every course he plotted was being monitored by the same people he was trying to capture. His pursuit of humans was being guided by humans who led him exactly where they wanted him to go. The trap was finally sprung in the Kepler 442 system, where Admiral Colvex's fleet found what appeared to be a major human settlement. Orbital stations, industrial platforms, and defensive installations filled the space around a blue-green planet that showed clear signs of terraforming. The Admiral ordered his fleet to surround the planet and demand the humans' surrender. This was the moment the Galactic Council had been waiting for. The largest human population center they had found, apparently trapped with no escape route. But when the alien ships moved to establish a blockade, they discovered that everything they were seeing was an illusion. The orbital stations were empty shells. The industrial platforms contained no useful equipment. The defensive installations were dummies designed to look threatening on sensors. The real trap was the hyperspace mines that human engineers had placed throughout the system. As the alien fleet tried to retreat, their ships triggered explosions that disabled their hyperspace drives. Suddenly, 47 alien warships were stranded in empty space with no way to call for help. Dongwu Shin's voice came over their communication channels with a simple message. You came here looking for slaves? You found free people instead. Your ships will be allowed to leave when you acknowledge that humans are not your property. The response from Admiral Colvex was predictable. Threats, demands, and assertions of galactic authority. His species had ruled star systems for thousands of years. He would not negotiate with escaped slaves. So his fleet was left to drift in empty space while their life support systems slowly failed. Other alien fleets detected their distress signals but could not reach them without risking the same fate. The humans had made their point clearly. Anyone who came looking for slaves would find something much more dangerous. Yujin Li watched the reports from her office on New Seoul's capital city. As the elected leader of the largest human settlement, she had been authorized to speak for humanity if the aliens ever decided to pursue real negotiations. But real negotiations would require the aliens to recognize humans as equals, not property, to be recovered. They would need to acknowledge that 3 centuries of slavery had been wrong. They would need to offer more than just improved working conditions. They would need to offer justice, reparations, and genuine equality. Until they were ready to do that, humans would remain hidden in the dark space beyond the galaxy's edge, building something better than what they had left behind. The search operations would continue, but they would find only empty space and clever traps. Humans had learned too much from their centuries of service to ever be enslaved again. 7 years after the humans left, the Galactic Council faced a choice that no one had ever imagined they would need to make. 2 billion aliens were dead from starvation, system failures, and infrastructure collapse. Entire species were discussing evacuation from their homeworlds. The galaxy that had ruled space for millennia was dying. Counselor Nithara stood before the emergency assembly, reading from a document that had taken months to write. Every word had been debated, revised, and approved by representatives who had never thought they would need to beg for help from the species they had once considered their servants. "Citizens of the galaxy," she began, "we have made errors in judgment that have led to our current crisis. We acknowledge that humans were treated as property rather than people. We acknowledge that their contributions to our civilization were greater than we understood. We formally request negotiations with human representatives to discuss terms for limited cooperation." The message was broadcast on frequencies that humans had designed, using equipment that humans had built, transmitted through networks that humans had maintained. It would take months to reach the edge of human space, and there was no guarantee that humans would even listen to it. But it was the first time in galactic history that the Council had admitted they were wrong about anything. In-Ho Song was elected by the human colonies to serve as their first representative to the galaxy they had left behind. He had been a maintenance engineer before the Exodus, keeping alien space stations running while being treated like a tool that could be stored in a closet when not needed. Now he wore the simple blue uniform of the Human Republic, representing 12 billion people who had built their own civilization in the darkness beyond the galactic rim. He sat across from alien diplomats who had never spoken to a human as an equal before. "You want our help," In-Ho said calmly. "But what are you offering in exchange?" Ambassador Thekmore shifted uncomfortably in his chair. His species had ruled 1,000 worlds for 5,000 years. Negotiating with former slaves felt like a betrayal of everything his people had built. "We offer improved working conditions, fair wages, and legal protections for human workers who choose to return to galactic service." In-Ho was quiet for a long moment. "You are still thinking of us as workers who serve you. That is not what we are anymore." Eugene Lee walked through the capital city of New Seoul, a place that had grown from a small colony into a thriving metropolis in just 7 years. The buildings were designed by human architects for human needs. The technology was built by human engineers who understood both function and beauty. The government was run by humans who had been elected by other humans. It was everything the galaxy had never allowed them to build. The alien delegation that had come to negotiate was staying in a hotel that human designers had created specifically for non-human visitors. The aliens were comfortable and well-treated, but they were clearly guests in a civilization that did not belong to them. Eugene had been chosen to lead the largest human settlement because she understood both diplomacy and practical governance. She had spent 30 years managing supply chains for alien colonies, watching alien administrators make decisions based on politics rather than logic. Human government was different. Decisions were made by people who understood the consequences of their choices. Leaders were chosen for their competence, not their ability to give impressive speeches. The aliens wanted humans to return to the galaxy as workers. Humans were willing to provide limited assistance to prevent complete civilizational collapse, but only as equals. Sang-Min Kim led the first humanitarian mission back to galactic space in 7 years. His team consisted of 47 human specialists: engineers, doctors, agricultural experts, and system analysts. They carried medical supplies, emergency equipment, and knowledge that could save millions of lives. But they were not returning as servants. They wore the uniforms of the Human Republic and carried diplomatic papers that identified them as citizens of an independent nation. Any alien who wanted their help would need to request it politely and accept that humans had the right to refuse. First world they visited was Kepler 442b, where atmospheric processors that humans had built were failing catastrophically. The alien population was being evacuated to orbital stations while toxic gases filled the air that had once been breathable. Sang-Min's team could fix the problem in 3 days. They had designed the original systems and understood exactly what was failing. But they would only work under conditions that the local government found difficult to accept. No alien supervisors giving orders. No predetermined schedule based on political convenience. No assumption that humans would work for free because they were helping people. The human team would do the work their way, at their own pace, with full authority over technical decisions. It took 2 days of negotiation before the local governor agreed to let humans save his world on human terms. Hyejin Park was the lead diplomat for humanity's new relationship with the galaxy. She had been a translator before the Exodus, listening to alien politicians make decisions about human lives without ever asking for human opinions. Now she sat in the same council chambers where those decisions had been made. But this time, she was speaking for people who had the power to walk away if they did not like what they heard. The aliens wanted guarantees. How many humans would return to work? Which systems would be repaired first? How quickly could critical infrastructure be restored? They were still thinking like managers who could assign tasks and expect results. Hyejin explained the new reality patiently. Humans would provide assistance to prevent humanitarian disasters, but they would choose which projects to work on and how to complete them. Any species that could not accept human expertise on human terms would need to solve their problems without human help. Some alien governments adapted quickly. They had seen their worlds dying and their people suffering. They were willing to treat humans as equals if that was the price of survival. Other governments refused to accept the new relationship. They would rather watch their civilizations collapse than admit that humans deserved respect. Pride was more important to them than the lives of their own people. The galaxy learned to live with the consequences of their choices. The human sovereignty. Accord was signed in the council chambers on Nexus Prime, witnessed by representatives from every species in the galaxy. The document established humans as an independent civilization with the right to control their own territory, govern their own people, and choose their own level of involvement in galactic affairs. Inho signed the document with a pen made from materials mined in human space, manufactured in human factories, and designed by human engineers. It was a small symbol of the independence that humans had built for themselves. The accord guaranteed that humans would never again be treated as a servant species. Any cooperation between humans and the galaxy would be between equals, with humans having the right to refuse any request they considered unreasonable. Some species prospered under the new arrangement. They learned to respect human expertise and benefited from genuine partnership with people who understood technology, agriculture, and system design better than anyone in the galaxy. Other species maintained their pride and refused to accept humans as equals. Their worlds continued to fail, their people continued to suffer, and their governments continued to blame everyone except themselves for the consequences of their choices. Dae-ho Kim stood on the observation deck of New Seoul's capital building, watching ships arrive and depart from the spaceport below. Some carried human families visiting other colonies. Others carried alien diplomats coming to negotiate trade agreements between equals. 7 years ago, he had walked through empty corridors for the last time, leading humanity's silent exodus from a galaxy that had never valued their contributions. Now he watched humans and aliens working together as partners, not masters and servants. The galaxy had learned too late that the people they had dismissed as simple workers were actually the foundation of everything they had built. Humanity's departure had been more devastating than any war, and their return had come only on terms that recognized their dignity and independence. Some worlds thrived under the new partnership. Others remained broken, their leaders too proud to admit they needed help from people they had once owned. The galaxy had learned that respect could not be demanded or legislated. It had to be earned through actions, not words. Humans had found something in the darkness beyond the galactic rim that they had never been allowed to have before, the right to choose their own destiny. They had built cities, governments, and technologies that belonged to them alone. They had raised children who would never know what it felt like to be owned by someone else. The galaxy could offer partnership now, but it could never again offer slavery. Humans had learned to live without masters, and they would never accept them again. In the end, the humans who had left silently had returned as something the galaxy had never seen before. A people who knew their own worth and would not accept less than they deserved. The galaxy could work with them as equals, or it could solve its problems alone. Those were the only choices that remained.